every single person came here for one thing, which is not wanting to hand over the keys of the future.
So the question is really important for us to focus on is what are the limitations of scale here, and how do we meet the growing demands that we see?
All right, folks, we have our first panel of the night. Built Different, exploring next-gen infrastructure approaches with some very special guests to kick off ETH Denver 2025. We have reps from DIA, Somnia, as well as Facet, and here to discuss different ways we're rethinking infra in the Web3 space. So I would love to pass it to you guys to give an intro, your background, and share the exciting things that you're working on to kick us off. Can start with you, Tom.
Sure. Thank you. Great to be here. Shout out Anchor. Great event. Shout out ETH Denver. So I'm Tom Lehman. I'm one of the co-founders of Facet. Facet is the only Ethereum rollup that cannot be shut down by anyone. So if you're using Ethereum, if you're using Bitcoin, one really cool feature of that is no one controls it. No one can shut it down. If there's a huge hack, it doesn't get shut down. Rollups are not the same way on Ethereum. Every rollup at Facet has a small list of admin keys that control the whole thing and can shut it down, and that's a big problem. And so we are trying to be different and have a rollup that cannot be shut down by anyone. My background, my origin story, Facet's origin story comes from Web 2. I started in Web 2. I was the co-founder and CEO of a company called Genius. If you've ever used genius.com, it's a website where you can get lyrics and learn about songs, learn from artists about songs. And we had this experience where, we were with Google, and Google was our big friend in the beginning. Right? Big centralized power, and they were our friend. They sent us a lot of traffic. But then, over time, this centralized power started not being so nice to us. They started competing with us with their own lyrics product, and then they started taking content from our website and putting it in their own product above our website in search results. They started front-running us, basically. And, we tried to stop them. They won. They have a lot of power, and that's why I came to Ethereum, because I wanted to help create a space that corporations don't control everything in. And yet, here we are, and now a lot of people in Ethereum are really eager, actually, to give the corporations control. And I think we have to all together stop that. So that's why I'm here. Thank you all so much.
Love that intro. Amazing. You have to follow that up. I apologize.
Great intro, great energy. Yeah.
How are we going to top that?
Hey, everyone. I'm Dillon Hanson. I'm leading the BD team at DIA. DIA is a cross-chain Oracle provider. We've been building since 2018. The product's been live since 2020. And today we support 56 different chains, EVMs and non-EVMs throughout the industry. What I will hopefully talk a little bit about today is we're actually launching an entirely upgraded architecture, striving for mainnet of the upgrade by end of Q1 here, so in the coming weeks. And really what we're doing is transitioning DIA to be operated through a roll-up-based Oracle architecture, whereby the entire flow of Oracle data, from sourcing to validating to distribution of the data, is all done on-chain with open source transparent methodologies. So at DIA, since origin, our core ethos and mission is to really provide the most transparent oracles throughout the industry, and therefore the most reliable oracles. And one kind of buzzword I'm going to throw around a lot is trustless. We're really looking to build out a trustless Oracle architecture so that there's no trust assumptions on third parties. There's no black boxes of data provenance or where data is coming from. And so these two kind of core values of what we're building between transparency and trustlessness are deeply integrated into the product or rather the upgrade that we're launching soon. So super excited to be here. Anchor team, thank you. Somnia is awesome. Looking forward to learning more about Facet as well. And cheers.
Yeah, thank you.
So hello, I'm Ignacio. I'm a smart contract developer, and I'm the head of engineering over at Somnia. In Somnia, we're building a super fast EVM L1. I really like the passion about the decentralization part, but in Somnia we have a different obsession, which is getting the speed numbers and the TPS go higher and higher and higher. And for that, you need, at first at least, to sacrifice some of the decentralization. You need like bigger machines, you need more professional node runners that are able to keep up with those hardware requirements. But we also have this roadmap where eventually we'll become more decentralized. But right now, the obsession is to make the EVM go brrr, literally. We're getting the EVM, the sequential execution of the EVM. So you have other competitors, they are going the parallelization way. We have the theory that that would break the moment you need it the most, which is when you have big mint, like the other side mint, where everyone is trying to touch the same state. That's when you need parallelization. That's when it breaks. So we just got the EVM the same way as it is, and we made it as fast as we could. And that's basically our obsession. That's what we have been doing for last year. Last Thursday, we launched our testnet. Everything is still up and running. I was checking it just now, so we're very happy about that. And a lot of things will be coming over the next month. So very excited to be here. Thank you, Anchor. Very excited for the panel as well.
Thank you for joining. And congrats on the testnet launch. Very excited for what's ahead at Somnia and all the super fast building that occurs. Yeah, I would love to really kick things off, and we'll keep it loose here. Throw out questions. Whoever wants to hop on first and take it, go for it. But since we are talking different, what does different mean to you when it comes to infrastructure? So each of you guys are really shaking up the infrastructure space. Dia with data, Somnia with speed, Facet with its can't be shut down approach. So I guess what's one old school Web3 assumption that you guys are tearing down and how you're approaching that?
I think one assumption that we are working with right now is there's a very weird thing that happens. And by the way, I'm not, I think there's all types of solutions. Anyone who comes up and says, oh, I have the one true thing in the blockchain world, like that's ridiculous, right? But like, I think what you have to think about is, okay, is everything going to be the same way? And I think that when you think about what is different, like you can look out right now and you can see in a lot of these spaces, every single thing is going one way. And when it comes to Ethereum rollups, my space of choice here, every single rollup is going towards centralization. Every single one except Facet. And when you see that, when you talk to people, what you hear sometimes is, do users care about decentralization? This is one of the most interesting things because every single person in this room, every single user you talk to, like we're still pretty niche right now, by the way, every single person came here for one thing, which is not wanting to hand over the keys of the future to centralized entities. And yet, everyone gets to work, building and endorsing, centralized, exclusively centralized sources. So I think the big thing I want to challenge to everyone here is just, if you are thinking of criticizing or critiquing, in a positive way, a decentralized project, and you're thinking what do users are interested in, just think, okay, maybe users don't care about decentralization in the sense that you don't care about flood insurance before your house floods. But you buy insurance still, and even more essentially than that, the narrative is something that has brought us all here. So that's, I think, a very powerful, powerful thing. So I think users do care about decentralization, and I think it's a beautiful thing.
Similar topic here on the decentralization side. One of the, I guess, assumptions or common perspectives on the Oracle space is that oracles are this source of trusted third-party data, right? You hear this all the time, that oracles are a trusted third-party source of data. And again, gets me back to the word I promised I would use, is that we're looking to get into this idea of trustlessness. And not having any trust assumptions in an Oracle architecture, right? When you look at the traditional Oracle architecture that's used by a lot of pretty much all of the players in the space, what they're doing is sourcing data from off-chain third-party data providers. And what happens here is it introduces this like black box of not really knowing on the source level of where data is coming from, right? You don't know the data, it's coming from, let's say, like the third party itself. It might be coming from CoinGecko or Kaiko or some off-chain provider, but you don't know the on-chain source, whether it's coming from, let's say, Uniswap or Curve, Camelot, etc. Right? And so from our perspective, what we're doing again is introducing this roll-up based architecture where the entire flow of data is being sourced on chain, and it can be all attestated or shown right? On chain, how data is going through the architecture with open source, transparent smart contracts. And this is, enforced by crypto economic security on like node operators and a decentralized architecture of that. But what we're looking to really back this up with is cryptographic security. So ZK proofs, right? So you can provide on-chain attestations or proofs regarding the origin and sourcing of data. So DIA wants to position, and what we're striving to do is position ourselves as this sort of like open source, permissionless framework where you can source data and push it through the DIA architecture and receive it on the destination chain with a proof. And throughout all of that, there's no black box of where data is coming from. It is all transparent and can be traced, and there's no trust me bro assumption that you see it has become kind of common, right, and accepted. So that's the assumption we're looking to push back on, is that oracles have to be a sense of a third-party trusted data source.
I like the trust me bro mindset. Exactly, that's the thing. So the thing that we are breaking on Web3, it's that one is EVM is a bad architecture or a slow architecture just by definition or by itself. We found when we were sitting down together, like first kind of meetings, like how are we going to do this? We wanted to go with the EVM because of all the ecosystem that you have built, all the developers that you have out there. But there was always someone saying like, yeah, but the EVM is too slow for what we want to do. And then it turns out that it's not that the EVM itself as an architecture is slow, it's just like the implementations that we have been seeing around, they are inefficient for one reason or another, either because of speed of development or for various different reasons. So you could get the EVM, don't touch anything on it, and just implement it better, make it faster, and it just works. So you don't need to go and make some weird architectures or alt VMs or whatever, which are very cool. I really like about a lot of the things about other VMs, but in the end, we think that the EVM was the way to go because of basically ecosystem and all the partners that you can get access to just out of the box. And still, we are proving that the EVM is just not bad by itself.
Nice. So a lot of different perspectives, all in the EVM space, coming from different viewpoints, touching on possibly similar or different user bases, possible integrations or connections between teams. Be interested to see what you guys think on what are the biggest differences between your visions and the focus on speed versus security versus decentralization, and kind of who's got the edge there and how your project fits in.
Sure. So it's a good question because there are, and I think it's also just funny to say the thing that we're challenging is the EVM is bad. Like I like the EVM, like I guess it's hated on now. Like by
I'm a fan of the
everyone,
EVM.
But yes, I think you do have to make these trade-offs, and I think when it comes to rollups, there's like the whole idea of base sequence rollups. Okay, so this is like the question of who controls the ordering, who controls the transactions that are censored or not censored, and so there's this idea of base sequence rollups where anyone can sequence the transactions, or centrally sequenced rollups where where only a central party can, and there are just real trade-offs, right? Like if you are the centralized sequencer, you kind of can see into the future of the chain because you know all of these transactions and all these blocks before they are confirmed, and so that allows you to be really fast. And base sequencing can maybe catch up to that in some ways. So there are the trade-offs there. Our choice is to prioritize decentralization first and then get speed after that, which I think is sensible, because if you don't do that, then it's like, okay, are you going to be decentralizing in the future? Like, what is really the incentive to do that? You have to be decentralized first. But I think there's a lot of cases where it's not in conflict, where a lot of these centralized sequenced rollups out there could be better without sacrificing performance at all, and yet they don't. And like one example of this would be, there's this notion on rollups like optimism or optimistic rollups, like it's called forced inclusion. It's a way that you can force your transaction around the sequencer and get into a block And like, that's a great feature. But they've set it up where like that feature can be disabled by the rollup admins. It's like, why would they do that? Like, that's the whole point. It's a censorship resistance feature. So I think they're real trade-offs. Our choice is decentralization first, but sometimes there isn't a trade-off. And you have to ask, why are they choosing centralization? So that's my question.
No, that's a good one. Like, why are you choosing centralization when you could not choose to be centralized? That's a good one. On our case, we are prioritizing, as I was saying, speed overall. We sacrifice the decentralization, the hardware side, and also like who are running the nodes, who are our partners. Basically, it's like a trusted circle of partners that are helping us setting the blockchain up. I hope personally that eventually this will be like opening up. The amount of partners are going to be enough, like wide enough that you will have a fair decentralization. And then when you go further and you open source the nodes, then you basically let anyone run it, even if it's not the Ethereum way of decentralizing stuff, where you could have basically a decent computer on your grandma's basement. But still, like, I think there is a good enough point of decentralization. On our side, we are much for speed and security, because you really can't have a blockchain without the security aspect. Like, you might as well have a very big database that goes very fast if you don't have like the cryptographic guarantees that you are expecting from any blockchain or any blockchain-based project, right?
Yeah, I find it, funny how like so many years later, this is still the core topic that we're all asking ourselves, right? Speed versus decentralization versus security. And I've seen different interesting approaches towards it. Usually you see like one team, I think usually you can have like two of the three, right? It's easy. Maybe you can have like decentralization and reliability / security at the caveat of like at the expense of like superior speed, or right, or some other alternative of the combinations here. What I've seen that's interesting over the years is like teams tackling two of the three and then phasing the approach towards decentralization, like a phased approach towards decentralization. I've seen that be like a compelling rollout strategy that works. And I think it is probably product specific and the type of builder or the type of target consumer that you're looking to attract. So on our side, as an infrastructure provider, right, we're providing critical data feeds for blockchains and applications to function. We need to prioritize decentralization and reliability. These are the core two pillars on like our hierarchy of needs that we need to deliver to ensure a robust product that can actually be used in the way that we want it to be used, right? In the way that the industry needs it to be. And so that's the way that we're building out right now this upgrade. As I mentioned, it's called Lumina. Where we fall on this, on the three core pillars here is probably right now a core focus on the decentralization and reliability aspect, and then rolling out and finding additional ways to achieve speed efficiencies. What's put us in a unique position to do this is kind of embracing the idea of a modular architecture. So really one of the reasons that we've launched Lumina is to embrace the idea that the industry is always evolving and always changing, and that the use case and needs for oracles are always evolving as well. Right now, we're in an industry where like super high frequency oracle price feeds are arguably the greatest demand that we see, right? When like all of centralized exchange like regulation came into play and all of the perp dexes became more active, we saw a huge demand spike for high frequency price feeds to support perpetual trading. And so we are really embracing the idea and the requirement for this speed, but looking at this as something that can be achieved as we scale here, and as we're able to modularly maybe implement and work with more cutting edge technologies. And not to go on too long here, but I mentioned we're looking at ZK. ZK is something that's still pretty costly and introduces some latencies, but something that also, in hindsight, has scaled significantly just over the last 12 months alone in achieving more cost efficiencies and reducing latencies. So that's where we're aligned, but I can't understate the importance of or overstate the importance of speed as relates to Oracle architectures as well.
Yeah, just to respond real quick, because I don't want to be like, oh, I'm the decentralization guy, and you got to be super. I think it's an absolute crucial trade-off to make. You got to choose, but it is the case that there's a tension. It's not the case that It's not the case that centralizing more automatically makes you faster, right? Like there's a notion of like risk and reward, right? Like increase risk, get more reward. Okay, I have an idea. I'm gonna go jump out that window. That's a really big risk, right? I'll probably get a great reward for that. Like, no, you're not gonna get a great reward for jumping out the window. And that's yet what we see people doing with centralizing for no reason on speed, in my opinion.
One follow-up, and this is just out of my own curiosity and kind of paint some context to different approaches in tailoring infrastructure and the 3 pillars that you guys are touching on, just like what end user or client target for each of you guys are you working more that kind of gives more context perhaps to your approach and architectures that therefore ends up in performance.
Sure. I mean, our target, it's funny, we have 2 targets. One target is the idealist, the ethos of crypto dude or girl, trust me, bro. But the big target actually is giant corporations. And I'm serious about this because so there's Sony, right? Sony makes the PlayStation, right? They also launched a rollup called Somnia. Why is Sony running an Ethereum rollup with a sequencer and they have to keep track of all this stuff? Maybe they're going to use Anchor probably soon. Sony's probably going to use Anchor. So why do that? The reason all these giant corporations, the reason these institutions decide to run their own blockchains is they don't trust anyone else, right, to run it for them, right? They don't want to use Coinbase's blockchain because who knows what Coinbase is going to do. So I think the beauty of of something like the Facet approach is that it actually gives a giant corporation the ability to not have to choose between building their own thing and trusting someone else's thing. It's a way to use something and not have to trust someone else or build it yourself.
I have a comment on that one, which is like, why would a big corporation go on a decentralized network where they can't manipulate themselves, the state of it? I don't trust corporations to run their own big blockchains precisely because of what you said. Like, why would I trust Sony to run that blockchain in a fair way, let's say?
No, I think but what I'm saying is in the ideal world, and who knows, like Sony's early adopter, obviously, but like in an ideal world.
We're not giving shit to Sony because for no reason.
Yeah, no, Sony's good, but in an ideal world, I think Sony would not have to choose between going on, OP mainnet or base and building Somnium. There should be something, call it even the Ethereum L1, where they could use it and not have to worry about who runs it. And it's really like the Ethereum L1 is like this thing, right? That's cool, where no one controls it. And so you don't have to worry about other people controlling you. And that means you don't have to worry about trying to dominate other people. And that's kind of what I'm saying is like, some people are going to want to be the boss no matter what, respect. But there are a lot of people out there who would give up control if they knew no one was going to be able to control them. And those are the people who I'm kind of, talking to, which is not everyone for sure, but that's the idea.
Yeah, again, it's just interesting to think to hear this and think about how different consumers, different builders have different needs. From our side, just quickly, our consumers are mainly dApps on the chains, right? So, and again, it requires like a wide range of customization, right? You can have like a perp DEX that needs super high frequency price feeds for maybe like blue chip assets, whereas you might have a lending protocol that needs like the longest list of assets you can possibly support, but don't have as high frequency needs. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at. And again, like customization is really integral to providing oracles that can be applicable for all different types of DeFi applications on these chains.
Nice.
Yeah, sorry. So in our case, there are like 2 personas, let's say, that I see as the main users of the chain. Like the origin of our chain, the narrative was very focused on gaming. So like you have first the end users who are used to certain speeds, certain user experience with a centralized database where you kill one guy, he's dead, and then you get some points, and that's immediate. So that's one kind of users that we see like using the blockchain. Like he needs to feel basically the same kind of experience that you get in any other game. And then also there is this other persona, which is more the developer side, where a game developer who is also used to get some performance out of the current tech stack that they are using. And now they finally want to move to Web3 because backlash seems to like be progressively less and less. 3 years ago, any game studio that wanted to get into Web3, they had like huge backlash from the community. Now it seems that is going down, and they are more willing to explore going or incorporating Web3 mechanics. But then they get there and they are just like, okay, what's this? This is just like, no, we can't make a game with this kind of latencies or with this kind of performance. So those are like the two main personas that I see taking more advantage of what Somnia has to offer.
And just real quick on the perp thing, because I want to, it's good because it's like a normal person, right, who's not like doing this crazy thing, is like, just give me the freaking perp decks. I want to just have, do that. But let me ask you this question. What is a perp trading platform, right? It is something where you should be able to, because perp means perpetual, right? It means like you can open a position that pays off under certain circumstances and stays open forever, right? And so my question is, if you have a trading platform that has perps, what happens to those open perps when the multi-sig that controls the blockchain shuts down the blockchain? And that's a legit question, right? No one knows the answer to that. I hope no one finds out, but literally what happens to these open positions, right? You can't, do it. So if you are prioritizing this kind of performance, you have to then think, okay, well, there is this element of the risk of this thing shutting down. So that kind of affects my day-to-day, finances. So it's these intersections. If you don't prioritize the performance, you're not gonna be able to open a position at all efficiently. But if you don't prioritize the life of the chain being out of reach of the admins, then you might end up with some weird tail risk that could really, get you in some real trouble. So I think it's the both. Perps is an interesting example for this.
I really hope we never find out, to be honest.
Agreed. Oh, that was great. Love the back and forth, guys. Keep it going. Gonna move to kind of scaling, different infrastructure approaches, scaling's the dream, hitting that product market fit, making it big as a project and company. But along with that comes headaches, and at Anchor ourselves, we know it's messy for a lot of teams, and providing that top tier infra for organizations so that they don't have to worry about those challenges. But there's security holes, centralization traps, cost spikes, all types of things that can happen. So curious around what types of scaling hurdles that you guys have occurred or envision down the road as you grow that you're mindful of.
You guys go.
So we see that even on the stage, you walk around ETH Denver, like the new opportunity that I think is really catching on is like the roll-up opportunity, right? Especially from our side, you see like roll-up as a service really creates this opportunity for a lot more seamless roll-up deployment. There's so many chains, there's so many new environments for infrastructure providers to support. So the question is really important for us to focus on is what are the limitations of scale here, and how do we meet the growing demands that we see of all of these roll-ups? One thing that we're doing, and like that I love when I see other infra providers doing this, is really making their infrastructure permissionless, so that I think in my opinion, and not to like kind of limit it too much to this specific topic, but I think having permissionless infrastructure that doesn't have to be permissioned. So let's say you have a bridge or an oracle, you don't need to get like the bridge team to integrate and support your chain, but rather anybody can permissionlessly use the framework that they've created. Like, for example, Hyperlane has done a really good job doing this, right? They've created this like open source permissionless framework for integrating Hyperlane bridge and their message passing protocol among any EVM chain. So you don't have to get permissioned Hyperlane integration to actually integrate Hyperlane. And so from our side, this is what we're focusing on too. Within the Oracle landscape, how can we create this permissionless Oracle deployment tool that not only can users come and seamlessly customize and deploy oracles on their own without needing to like contact the DIA team, but also integrate DIA oracles on any EVM chain. And I'm getting into the question here though is like, okay, so we're still only talking about EVM, right? There are chains outside of EVM and growing as well, but right now, the focus from our side is permissionless Oracle deployments and creating this open source permissionless framework for accessing and integrating DIA oracles and deploying those oracles on any chain without needing the DIA team to do it in-house. And this is really how we're looking at scale over the indefinitely as we see how fast this industry is growing.
On our end, I think we're a bit early to think about like scaling the chain itself. We actually have a different problem, which is what we need to scale right now is the ecosystem. So you find yourself with a lot of block space, with a lot of capacity, but then you really want to do something with that capacity, right? Like just a blockchain that is able to produce a lot of blocks very fast. It's not very useful by itself if there is nothing in there. So rather than a technical problem, which is like, hey, yeah, how do we do more of what we're doing? I think that we should be, at least us on Somnia, should be very focused on how we grow the ecosystem, how we attract new use cases that you normally discard because blockchains are not for doing centralized limit order book, for example. And what other stuff, like for example, I know that I'm very biased on this one. Because I'm come from the EVM and from smart contract development on Ethereum, etc. There is a lot of stuff that I just like don't think about doing on chain, and I would like someone that is external to blockchain that comes from Web 2 or like it's new and is not aware of the limitations that Ethereum has or like any other blockchain that's like an L1 have, and maybe they can think about new use cases for putting stuff on chain that for a more old programmer like me makes absolutely no sense. You never do that. But I want people to do like nonsense on our chain, for example. So that's where we need to focus right now, scalability on the ecosystem rather than on a tech side.
That makes sense. Yeah, for us, scalability, especially when we were building Facet, launching Facet, it comes down in a lot of ways often to humility. Okay, because like we at Facet, we think, we are very different. We're very passionate about what we're doing, but you don't want to let that passion get in your head and think, okay, I know everything now. I can know how to do everything, right? I'm gonna build everything from scratch. You have to really do the research. You have to understand what other people are doing. Even if you are really criticizing them, you have to use and take the best from what they are doing and see if you can contribute as well. So for example, for us, we are an optimism fork, right? Like we're big critics of like optimism chains, right? But we also have to say, wow, they built some amazing technology. They built some amazing software. It's open source license. It's great. Let's fork this. Let's use this. Let's not reinvent our own thing. Another big thing I think is really important for scalability is looking at where Ethereum is going. Okay, so like you have to be able to see what is on Ethereum's roadmap or try to understand it, try to contribute to it, and then that will help you down the road in terms of what you're building to, again, not duplicate effort. So for us, for example, that's really getting involved in the Ethereum Foundation's efforts on the native rollups front, which is another effort surrounding zero governance rollups. So really trying to look outside of what you're working on and have some humility and respect for what other people are doing, and then harness their work to the extent you can, I think is a really important part of scalability.
Well said. So I know we're getting close and over time, so we'll keep this one real quick. Last one, rapid fire round. So Feroz doesn't give me the hook here. 5 years from now, what's one sign that Web3 infra is truly built different, and who's leading that charge?
I got to say, I'll call back. We got to have the perp market open still. I'd say one perp market open for 5 or 10 years, and we're in good shape because that's the canary in the coal mine for me.
I think that we need to completely open up and take away the distinction between the Web 2 off-chain world and the Web 3 on-chain world. I think that that's what we need to get all of the masses. I mean, we're onboarding retail, but like to what extent? So that they're like trading memes right now on Solana. Like nothing against that. Hey, whatever. I've been caught in the trenches myself, but. I think that looking 5 years forward for us and for the industry, from my perspective, one of the biggest unlocks and opportunities to really bring new capital, bring new users, new opportunity and innovation in is real world assets, bridging the gap between the real world and tokenizing all of that and bringing that on chain. So not just real world assets like the blue chips that the Fidelities and BlackRocks are tackling, but the real world asset that like your luxury watch dealer or like your luxury car dealership or anybody with a niche real world asset wants to bring on chain and access users and unlock utility for those assets. I think that building infrastructure to reach the scale of that, all of those one-off niche use cases is what's needed to really get to like this I mean, something that like personally, I have passion for in connecting the real life world. And, you know, when I'm talking with my non-Web3 friends, that's the unlock they're looking for. You know, the unlock of examining or understanding the implications that this has in their everyday real world life. So on the infra side, I think that's the big unlock, being able to satisfy that demand at that scale and bring it all on with robust railways so that it you know, can't be manipulated and yeah, it can actually satisfy all of those use cases.
I'm not sure if it's going to happen, but I would love to see in 5 years that blockchain is a serious competitor to traditional finance and that it's present in the day-to-day life of consumers. I would love to see P2P payments being like a common thing from your phone anywhere. I would like to see blockchains that are able to basically hold a whole financial system properly. And I also would like to see them being so easy and so cheap to use that people just choose them over traditional finance.
Terrific. Appreciate the insights, guys. So from data to transaction speed to DeFi, rewriting the info rules here. So thanks to Dia, Somnia, Facet, everyone for showing up. ETH Denver.
Thank you.
And all of us keep building together. Let's give it a hand for our panelists here.
Thank you.
Thank you.